Hi guys, welcome back to yet another fun DIY weekend here aboard Athena. If you've seen some of my latest videos, you might already have noticed a slight change of scenery. Athena has finally been moved into the yard's workshop. It was supposed to happen 3 weeks ago, and I was starting to doubt whether or not it would actually happen. But yeah, it's very much a case of better late than never. I'm very excited to be in here for two reasons. For one, the roof doesn't look like it's leaking like a sieve. It actually looks like it's watertight, and the roof is also insulated. I was starting to have issues with condensation dripping on the deck, and the tarp I put up over the boat only covered the holes in the roof that leaked when it rained. It goes without saying that it's not really great to have water dripping down on the deck when I'm about to start painting very soon. In related news, I've also gotten a small stay of execution, meaning Athena was supposed to have been moved outside Monday, that's the day after I'll publish this video, but I think I can stay in here until Saturday next weekend. And that is marvelous news because my hands were kind of tied in the beginning of this week. Monday and Tuesday it was too cold for me to work, meaning the temperature was below 5 degrees Celsius or 41 degrees Fahrenheit, and that is the minimum temperature required to work with the epoxy I'm using for fairing the deck. So it is absolutely paramount that I'll be able to raise the temperature to continue working. Unfortunately, the yard doesn't have a working heat source. In fact, where that heat source used to be, there's a great big gaping hole in the roof. But some of you guys suggested that I should just heat the inside of the boat and heat the deck that way. That should be able to raise the temperature of the deck enough so that I can continue working at least for a week more. I've got the heater I used for heating the boat last winter just sitting around. It's a 3000 watt heater, and some of the other liveaboards in the marina have similar heaters. And if I can borrow theirs for a week, I could put out 9000 watts of heat here inside the boat. But before I go ahead and turn on this thing, I better go ahead and cover up the great big gaping holes that are the hatch openings in the deck. A bit of styrofoam would be awesome for this, but I don't have any right now, so for this initial test, a bit of tape and some paper will have to do. Yeah, that is not what I would call pretty, but at least tomorrow it'll be easy for me to put a piece of styrofoam on top of the tape. I am going to move the heater out of the way so that if this falls down, it's not going to land on top of the heater. More! Well, I guess I'll have to settle for 28 degrees Celsius. Of course, there is a ton of port light openings in here in the main saloon that I'll also have to tape up. It's a good thing the masking tape was on sale. Looking back, perhaps I should have held off just a few days on removing the excess fiberglass here on the openings for the port lights. But I really wanted to, and also there were some unevenness in that excess fiberglass that would make it a little bit more difficult to fair the surface. Every opening in the boat is now covered up by masking tape. So let's head up on deck and I can show you the tiny bit of progress I made yesterday. But before we get to that, I just want to mention that tomorrow morning I'm going to swing by the boat and check the temperature of the deck and compare that to the ambient temperature. That should give me a good indication of whether or not heating the inside of the boat is going to be a viable option. Now, let's take a look at that progress. As you might already have noticed, I've gotten another layer of fairing compound on the low spots here on the deck. I've also gone over the hatch openings one more time, and I've also done a little bit of work on the edge of the core. In my last video, you guys saw me use my homemade jig to apply fairing compound to this edge. Yesterday, I took my router to it to shape it, and I discovered some low spots where I needed just a tiny bit more fairing compound. So I put that on there, and that's basically where we're at now. My plan is for the nun skit to end somewhere around here so that this edge here is going to be a high gloss paint. And that's why I care so much about this edge, because any imperfections are going to show up. And it's not rocket science, it's just a matter of plugging away at it and eventually it'll become spiffy. I would love nothing more than to keep filming, but I am very pressed for time and I've got some sanding I absolutely need to take care of tonight. And you guys have seen quite a bit of sanding lately, so I think I'll spare you that. Instead, I'll just do a quick cut and it'll be tomorrow. And just like that, it's Friday afternoon. The weekend is here and I think I've got a bit of good news. On my way to my day job this morning, I swung by the boat and I grabbed some measurements off of the deck. Some temperature measurements. I was a little bit surprised to see that the deck here in front of the cabin top was between 15 and 18 degrees Celsius, while the outside ambient temperature was around 8 degrees Celsius. Of course, it would also be very interesting to know what the ambient temperature was here inside of the workshop, and that we can check on this little doohickey. I've shown you guys this before, I think it's maybe 6 months ago, but this thing is proving to be pretty dang awesome. That little doohickey logs temperature and moisture measurements, and those you can then check on your smartphone. And if we go back, we can see that this morning it was around 13 degrees Celsius. So the temperature of the deck was 5 degrees Celsius higher than the ambient temperature here inside the workshop. And also kind of interesting, the ambient temperature here in the workshop was 5 degrees Celsius warmer than outside of the workshop. That's pretty freaking awesome news, because that means I don't need to worry about temperature for the next week. All I need to worry about is getting as much work done as possible. Slight change of topic. This is the primer I'll use, and this is the paint that goes on top of that primer. The primer is called Sigmacover 280 and the paint is called Sigmacover 550. I'll throw links for the datasheets for both of these in the description down below. In a few minutes, I think a fellow DIY boat YouTube guy here from Denmark is going to swing by, and the reason I mention that is because he knows a lot about paint, and in particular, I believe, that brand. So it'll be fun to ask him some questions. I've chosen to go with these products based on Kenneth's recommendation. Would you mind telling us what it is you do for a living?
I work for PPG. PPG is an American company that manufactures the paint. And at the moment I think we are the world's biggest actually, but it is a competition between number 1 and number 2, so I'm not completely sure, but very close. If I should go with a little bit commercial, we deliver paint for Ferrari and Harley Davidson, just for, and also for mass. My job is mostly for vessels, bigger vessels, as a paint inspector and advisor.
Could you tell us a little bit about the two products I've got here?
The first one is a Sigmacover 280. The 280 is a primer. It is very surface tolerant. That means that it can go on mostly all kind of surface. Alloy, stainless steel, glass fiber, steel, etc. The second coat in this system is a 2-component polyurethane. It is a Sigmacover 550 and is very easy to apply, even with spray, roller, brush, whatever you want. Everybody can apply this one. It is very, very easy.
Painting is a vast topic that we can't just cover in one little video, and I also have a lot of work to get back to. So perhaps, Kenneth, you could give us just a brief overview of the common pitfalls or most common mistakes people make when applying a system like the one we've got here.
The first thing is the surface. It needs to be cleaned, and it also needs to have some kind of roughness. The roughness can be made by grinding or blasting. There are several methods for that. Grinding is the most common and is normally very good. The next thing is the humidity. It is very important that it is below 85%. And we have a little thumb rule. with the surface and the surrounding air temperature. If that is the same, in this case the boat and the air is same temperature and the humidity is below 85, then we are free of the dew point. I normally use a beer as a very good example. You come home from work, take out the beer from the fridge, it's very cold, and the surrounding air in your living room is 20-23 degrees, and the dew will start running immediately from the beer. And that is because the beer is below the dew point and all the dew will run down. But if we raise the temperature on the beer, the dew will disappear, and that's the same on the boat.
Good morning, guys. Kenneth and I ended up hanging out for a few hours here aboard Athena. Then we headed over to the marina and had a communal meal with the rest of the liveaboard, which was really nice. But while we were hanging out here aboard Athena, we did a bit of sanding, some hand sanding. Thanks to our efforts yesterday, the hatch openings are now 99% done, but there are a few tiny imperfections. For instance, there is a pinhole right here. I can just barely feel it, but it is there, and I'm sure that is going to show up in the glossy paint. Also, there is a bit of roughness here on this corner, and I want to take care of both those types of issues. But other than that, I think we're at the point where I'm going to have to call this good enough. I mean, sure, a professional guy might be able to come in here and make this look better, but I just don't have more time. So if there are any defects on this when I paint it, well, I'll just look at this as a handcrafted artisanal hatch opening. I doubt it'll show up on camera. It's hard to pick up with the naked eye even, but I think there is a slight difference to the radius on this part of the corner here compared to this corner over here. And stuff like that, well, that's what's going to make this a handcrafted artisanal hatch opening. Of course, there is always the option of just coming back in a few years and fixing it if it's really driving me crazy. But in all honesty, once the deck is loaded up with deck hardware and cluttered up, I doubt you're going to notice stuff like that. Because the workshop is attached to a small shop, I got here pretty early this morning and took care of the most noisiest job I'm going to do today, and that was to take my router to the edge of the core. The edge of the core is starting to look pretty dang spiffy. At least it's looking a lot better than it did this spring when I removed the teeped deck. I mean, there are still some things I need to fix, but yeah, I'm pretty pleased so far. Just like on the hatch openings, there are some tiny pinholes I'll have to fill, but the top of the radius here is pretty close to perfect, so I'm not gonna mess a lot with that. There is, however, the small matter of this annoying lip down here. This was exactly what I wanted to avoid by using the jig I showed you in the last video. I'd hoped that I could get this edge out here to be perfect and then just round over the corner and that would be that. But that turned out not to be precise enough, so I had to put on some extra fairing compound there and then use my router, and that has left me with this lip here. So now I need to figure out how to get rid of this annoying thing so that I can put a nice fillet down here at the bottom corner. I think I can use the router to get close, but I can't use the router to make it perfect because these two surfaces, the top of the core and this surface down here, are not 100% parallel. So for instance, right here, I'm just starting to dig into the fiberglass and I don't want to do that. Oh, well, that took just about forever. I've been working on that edge now for 6 hours, but at least it's starting to look pretty good. I used my router to get rid of most of the excess material. There's about 1 millimeter left here that I can't really get rid of, so I've just decided to use a slightly bigger fillet and let that cover up that little bit of excess fairing compound. Before I leave the boat today, I want to make sure that I put down fairing compound in as many areas that need it as I possibly can. So that means fixing the pinholes on the hatch openings, the pinholes on the side of the core, also some fairing compound on the cabin top, and, well, also the deck. But before I can do that, I've got yet more sanding to take care of. For instance, right here, I added some extra fairing compound. There was kind of a low spot here, but that needs to be sanded. Perfect. Or at least it's on the intersection between good enough and I really don't want to be sanding anymore. I think I've had my fill of sanding for a while after this deck, but yeah. I saw a few comments pop up suggesting that I should use like a 10-inch soft pad for this, and I would love to give that a try, but I just cannot find them anywhere over here. As you might be able to see here behind me, it's dark outside. And that's because it's pretty late in the day. It's 7 o'clock in the evening. I've been at it a little over 12 hours and I am beat. The good news is I'm done sanding, but I haven't done any fairing yet. I'm going to compromise a little. All I'll be fairing tonight are the hatch openings here. I don't want to start on the edge of the core because I think I'm going to make too many mistakes and that's just going to lead to more sanding. But I would really like to be able to show you guys some kind of progress this week. And I think that progress is going to be to get the primer on the hatch openings. I've put in a lot of effort this week, but I don't really have a lot to show for it. I just have a sanded deck. You can't really see that it's sanded. You can feel that it's nice and smooth, but you can't see it. So it would be nice to have something visual to show you guys. And the hatch openings, well, they might be a nice fit for that. I'm going over the area here and just by feel identifying any little low spots that needs just a tiny touch of fairing compound. I've mixed up the world's smallest batch of 407. So now it's just a matter of getting this stuff onto the areas I indicated with my pencil. In a way, I am kind of glad that I only have another week to go because I can't help but feel like I need a break. You might be able to make out these slightly darker areas around the hatch openings. That's the fairing compound. So I am done for tonight. Good morning, guys. It is Sunday morning. And what better way to start out this fine Sunday morning than by doing a little bit more sanding. Pro tip, sanding requires a couple of things, an abrasive and a ton of podcasts. Right now I'm listening to a podcast my girlfriend recommended, but if you guys have some suggestions for podcasts, then just go ahead and leave them as a comment down below. First on my to-do list today is to get the hatch opening sanded for the umpteenth time, but hopefully also the last time. I think that is about it for my handcrafted hatch openings. All of the imperfections from yesterday are gone. I'm sure there are some that I've missed, but we won't be able to see those until I start applying paint. Before I start painting around the hatch openings, I want to take care of all the stuff I'm going to be doing forward of that area so that I'm not stepping around in wet paint. And that would be, for instance, the fillet along the edge of the core, and also one other thing. Oh, and by the way, I noticed this while editing the first section of this video last night. The white stuff around my nose, not cocaine, just a bit of sanding dust. Now that I've reassured you guys of my sobriety, let's just go ahead and get on with the boat work. And this is that other bit of work I want to take care of before I start painting. I've used my router to form the shape of these two edges here, and I figured the easiest thing to do would be to do the exact same thing on this edge up here. As far as the alignment of this, I think the most important thing is to make sure that the angles on each side here are roughly the same. I think that because this area up here is going to get covered up by stainless steel, so you can't really compare this edge to the edge up here. What you're going to be looking at is the edge of the stainless steel, and I can move that around a little bit. That looks just about right. It's kind of difficult to judge by eye because of all the weird angles here, but that guide should be exactly where I want it. With that forward edge taken care of, I can now finally get on with the fillet. And of course, that fillet is going to be made out of epoxy and 407. That looks about right. It looks like I've grossly overestimated how much fairing compound this fillet would take. But that's okay, the excess is reusable. It is just a matter of getting the excess thickened epoxy into a new plastic bag, and then we're ready to go again. This time around, we'll simply just apply a little bit less. I am done with the fillet on both the port and the starboard side, and that's very fortunate because it's almost 5 o'clock and that is my absolute deadline for when I need to start rendering this video. But I think I promised you guys yesterday that I would be painting the hatch openings today, so why don't we hurry up and do that? Something tells me it might be a good idea to stir this before mixing in the hardener. I've gone ahead and placed the base and the hardener inside of my little insulated box. Now I'm using the thinner that's appropriate for that paint to just wipe down the surface. Wiping down the surface was definitely not a waste of time. I guess this is what Athena would look like if she was an army boat. Taking a closer look at the hatch openings, I gotta say, I think they look pretty dang spiffy. I am 100% satisfied. And also the deck looks pretty dang good, so yeah, I'd call this a big win. There are a couple of things I want to mention before ending this video, but I'm very pressed for time, so this is going to be a one-shot kind of shot. First up, I know I should have been wearing some more protective gear while painting. I'll be sure to do that when I paint the entire deck. There's no need to yell at me in the comments for that. Second, a big thank you to Kenneth for stopping by. That was a lot of fun. His channel is in Danish, but if you speak Danish, you should definitely head over and subscribe. Yeah, I think that's about it. I've got to get busy rendering this video right now, so that's going to be it for this video. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like. See you!